When telling a story, a writer sometimes uses a box of tricks. It could be using the ideas of other artists as reference points, smashing together a pair of disparate ideas to create a novel one. It could even be imitating one's own style. But perhaps there's no better box in a storyteller's toolbox than the box of archetypes. You've come across them in virtually every film, video game, fairy tale, myth, and legend. You may have even noticed them in yourself. There's no escaping them. Archetypes are the key to unveiling the world beneath the surface, the mythical world that underlies the land of common day. The concept is most associated with Swiss superstar psychologist Carl Jung, but stems as far back as the ancient Greeks, which goes some way to explaining their universality. We will all be long gone, but the prototypical figures of Greek myth, the traditional characters of fairy tales, the comic book superheroes, Hogwarts wizards and Jedi warriors will still be alive and kicking in the collective imagination, and the companies that make good use of these characters will continue to rake in the cash. Archetypes are instrumental in developing a universal story, one that resonates throughout the ages. Archetypes too are key to unlocking the hidden world of Psychonauts. When playing these games, one may experience that strange feeling of déjà vu. It's a multifaceted déjà vu. There's objects from the past re-emerging in the present, story elements from one game echoing through to the next, but also the sorts of characters and storytelling tricks you've seen before in works of popular fantasy, gothic fiction, and classic mythology. Archetypes offer a lens through which we can reinterpret the world, pinpoint storytelling patterns, and divine the fates of tragic characters. Along the way, we'll also learn the template of every story ever told, and take a look at some of the archetypes from Psychonauts 1 and 2 you might have missed. The concept of archetypes emerged from the depth psychology of Carl Jung. For Jung, archetypes are ancient patterns of personality present in the collective unconscious. Just as there is a personal unconscious, a mental basement containing the repressed memories of an individual, there is the collective unconscious, the communal area outside one's front door. While our mental homes are always changing, in accord with one's life experiences, the shared space doesn't change. It's been that way since the beginning of time. It's from here which spring the dreams of an entire culture, of the entire world. Myths, legends, and fairy tales all originate from this shared mythic space. Archetypes are the primitive mental images which recur in the stories of all people. Each archetype reflects a different aspect of the human mind. If life is a play, then the archetypes are the masks we wear. We choose a mask based on the needs of the scene. With a change of scene often comes a change of mask.
There is nothing more tedious than the tears of an unlovable child.
Masks teach us how characters operate in the story, as well as in the real world. A character might wear the wily mask of a trickster to persuade himself past a guard, but then switch to a warrior should he be outed as an imposter. A protagonist wearing a single mask won't advance far, both in terms of story and personal growth. Archetypes can be thought of as different aspects of the hero's personality. A well-rounded hero is really an assortment of archetypes bundled into one. Often the hero begins as an innocent, someone with little knowledge of the world, perhaps a little too trusting. But as they meet new characters, they pick up a trait or two. They soak up their archetypal energies. A genuinely helpful mentor might make the hero wiser. A dark-hearted mentor might make them more cynical, less trusting, may even turn them down the path of villainy. Archetypes perform a psychological function. Each new archetype offers the potential for growth and change. They're like the major arcana cards of a deck of tarot, each one a personified symbol of a particular human quality, together standing for a complete human personality. The most dominant archetype within us is the god at whose altar we worship the most. Problems occur when we become too obsessed, too consumed by a single archetype. This can lead to what Jung terms possession by the shadow. The shadow is the archetype most closely associated with Jung. In his own words, it is that hidden, repressed, for the most part inferior and guilt-laden personality, whose ultimate ramifications reach back into the realm of animal ancestors. It's the animal side of our personality, but that's not to say it's evil. The shadow contains destructive energies, but also displays a number of good qualities, such as normal instincts, appropriate reactions, realistic insights, creative impulses, etc. It's reflective of our survival instincts. It's those aspects of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden from the world, in the personal unconscious. When those aspects take over, we get lost in the basement. When lost in the basement, we become unable to develop our higher selves. The healthiest thing one can do is accept the shadow, without getting consumed by it. When learning about the hero archetype, there are few better starting points than the works of Joseph Campbell. Jung too discusses the hero in books like Symbols of Transformation, but it's Campbell whose works deal most exclusively with this type. His seminal work, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, lays out the blueprint for the typical hero's journey. It's this outline which Hollywood scriptwriters turn to when developing their own blockbuster adventures. In short, a hero ventures from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Campbell's journey outlines the various steps the hero takes between the ordinary and the special world. Campbell was the first to expose the pattern that underlies every story ever told. It came after reading hundreds of stories, from Aztec myths to European fairy tales, to Greek narratives, to Oriental fables, to biblical legends, and everything in between. The standard journey of the hero can be represented in 3 sections: separation, initiation, and return. The hero is separated from the special world, the hero penetrates it, and the hero returns to the ordinary world, having transformed it. As above, so below. The hero's journey is as much an inner journey as an outer one. It could easily be read as a spiritual voyage, a penetration past the world of superficial appearances into the realm of ultimate truth. Similarly, it could be read as one of psychological significance. Campbell's thinking runs along similar lines to Jung. The psychoanalyst and the mythological hero share a common goal, a desire to illuminate a curious source of disturbance deep below the surface. It's here where the worlds of psychology and mythology combine. For Jung, the mental grievances within us are caused by mythological gods. In his own words, Zeus no longer rules Olympus, but rather the solar plexus. However, the worlds of mythology and psychology do differ in one key aspect. Although mythological symbols correspond to those found in dreams, they are not exactly comparable. Dream is the personalized myth, myth the depersonalized dream. The dream is quirked by the peculiar troubles of the dreamer, whereas myth, the problems and solutions shown are directly valid for all mankind. The difference again is between the universal and the personal. Myths originate from the collective unconscious, are shared by all of humanity. When the character wears the mantle of a mythological figure, they are giving up their personal desires to inhabit that role. Dream symbols, on the other hand, are spontaneous, influenced by the whims of the dreamer. They're a little weird, a little quirky. The mythological world is rooted in familiarity, the dream world in peculiarity. Myths have staying power, and pop culture abounds with mythic archetypes. It's likely no coincidence that some of the most popular films, shows and novels of modern culture have all dipped their toes in the mythological font. Love them or hate them, comic book superheroes are regularly cited as the Greek myths of our time. Think about how many iterations a character like Batman has been through, from the campy purism of 60s Adam West to his super dark modern counterpart, the same myth retold from one generation to the next. Harry Potter tells the archetypal story of an orphan boy, blessed with divine powers, initiated into a magical world with the help of numerous mentors. Its world is packed with magical creatures plucked straight out of Greek mythology. On the flip side is The Wire, a crime drama set in the gritty city of Baltimore, With its epic story underpinned by the laws of Greek tragedy, its characters remotely governed by Olympian gods in the form of postmodern institutions. Archetypes are especially prevalent in the world of mass entertainment, in Hollywood blockbusters and AAA video games. Their popularity can, in part, be attributed to one man and his Memo. It's the 70s and Christopher Vogler is studying cinema at university. While there, he discovers the work of Campbell. About the same time the first of the Star Wars films is released, he makes two observations. 1. The same mythic pattern Campbell outlines in his book can be seen in Star Wars. And 2. Star Wars made lots and lots of money. After writing a paper on the subject, he leaves university and starts applying Campbell's ideas to every script and novel he works on, with profitable results. Fast forward to the mid-80s, and he's a story consultant at Walt Disney Pictures. Time off involves watching lots of old movies and analysing how the hero's journey can be applied to each and every. He dilutes his analysis into a 7-page memo, sends it to a few colleagues and Disney executives. Copies of the memo bounce about town, then percolate into the land of Hollywood. By the time Vogler starts work on The Lion King, the animators are already outlining their storyboards with hero's journey stages. Vogler's memo is a 7-page crash course of Campbell's seminal work, discussing Jung's concept of archetypes, as well as the ageless pattern to which filmmakers like Spielberg, Lucas and Coppola owe their success. For the time-strapped, it serves as a quick and handy guide to Campbell's ideas, a useful framework or cheat sheet for the Hollywood scriptwriter or game designer in need of polishing up a story lacking that certain je ne sais quoi, or a stage or two of the hero's journey. The memo is said to have influenced the field of video game design, and indeed many of the ideas from the memo are woven into the fabric of Psychonauts. To get to the heart of the hero, one must once again return to the ancient Greeks. While often thought of as male, Hero is the name of a priestess in early Greek mythology. Hero had a lover who swam nightly across a strait to see her. Hero's job was to light a lamp at the top of a tower to guide his way. The action suits the name. The word hero comes from a Greek root meaning to protect and serve. Implicit is the notion of self-sacrifice, as a hero is usually willing to sacrifice her own life for the sake of her loved ones. As well as meaning protector, the Greek word also means demigod. A hero is often a half-god, the offspring of one divine parent and one mortal parent. He's the special chosen one, and it's his semi-divine heritage which makes him greater than his peers. In psychological terms, the hero represents what Freud called the ego, the part of the personality that considers itself separate from the rest of the world. This stage of psychological development corresponds to the beginning stages of the hero's journey, the separation of the hero from the family or tribe. As the ego hero journeys past the world of surfaces, she comes to realize that all tyrants, tricksters, critics and fools can be found within oneself. Instead of thinking she is separate from these parts of herself, the hero comes to finally accept and incorporate them to become their true self.
Hi, are you the real Cassie?
The hero doesn't go it alone. Their journey is usually illuminated by the teachings of mentors far older and wiser than they. The same applies to the artist, the writer, or archetypally speaking, the creator. A quick look back at the ideas discussed shows how they belong to one long chain stretching back to the ancients. Jung's concept of archetypes stems from the Greek classics of the first centuries, which led to Campbell's laying out of the hero's journey, which in turn influenced the conception of George Lucas's Star Wars, which went on to influence countless storytellers, one of them being Tim Schafer. George Lucas had long been an admirer of Campbell. He studied his books while writing the early drafts of Star Wars, and later became a good friend, inviting him to a screening of the original trilogy. The script for Star Wars was conceptualized with the hero's journey in mind. To this day it serves as a classic example of the monomyth. A hero from humble beginnings receives a call for adventure, leaves his home planet to explore strange worlds, almost gets killed in the process, and all the rest of it. One could separate Skywalker's journey into 3 acts. The hero leaves his ordinary world in Act 1 to join forces with a group of strangers in Act 2, then helps them fulfill their mission in the 3rd act by destroying a superweapon. But this being an epic told over the course of 3 films, there are still 2 more laps of the track to go. The hero is yet to discover the truth of his parentage and end the tyranny of a duplicitous sorcerer. Only after that 3rd lap does the roller coaster reach a more definite conclusion. There are clear storytelling similarities between Star Wars and Psychonauts. Both franchises make use of the classic rule of 3. Both follow the stepping stone template of the hero's journey, but that episodic style of storytelling is less classical in origin. Really, it's rooted in old-fashioned nostalgia. Cartoons have certainly moulded the visual style of Psychonauts. The game has that lopsided Saturday morning cartoon look, its doll-like characters modelled after the stop-motion creations of Rankin Bass and Tim Burton.
Lost. Where was I? Spoiled all.
Raz's love of True Psychic Tales roots the story in the world of comics.
Hey, True Psychic Tales is a graphic non-fiction periodical.
Psychonauts tells one large story spanning several episodes, just as comics do. And indeed, many Saturday morning cartoons were adapted from comics, relying on the same episodic story structure. However, one has to look to the more distant past to truly grasp the format. This lounge gives a hint, and so does George Lucas. According to Lucas, Star Wars is based on a serialized style of storytelling that harks back to 30s style cinema, specifically the Saturday matinee serial. These serials took the form of B-movie westerns, outlandish science fiction operas such as Flash Gordon, and the jungle adventures of Tarzan. These were stories featuring diabolic weapons and villains, shocking plot developments, and often ended in a suspenseful cliffhanger. It's not only Star Wars but Indiana Jones which tips its hat to this now obscure genre. Content-wise, Star Wars borrows from the pulp fantasies of early science fiction magazines. Space operas like Empire of Jegga are said to have left their mark on Lucas. Not only does this one have Jedi warrior officers, an invisible force wall, and heat ray guns, but also an underground revolutionary movement, an evil empire, and alien scoundrels. Similar to matinee serials, pulp science fiction is characterized by long-form narratives, interconnected storylines, and melodramatic sequences. It's sensationalistic storytelling featuring fantastical twists and turns. That cliffhanger ending is important. Split up in several installments, readers would feel compelled to return to the newsstand in the next week or 2 to catch up with their favourite hero. The same business principle later instructed the Saturday matinee serial, and then the modern Hollywood trilogy. One could view serialization as a simple way to make something more enticing, like adding sprinkles to a donut. Then again, one should not overlook the writer's skill in weaving a rich and complex story. Thematically, Star Wars and Psychonauts are on the same page. Both tell their stories using mythological psychological motifs: the metamorphic hero, the messy father-son relationship, the potential evils of new technology. These are themes which appear time and time again in Hollywood blockbusters. They have universal appeal. They will never grow old, never die. From a business perspective, it makes sense to use them, like using Ziploc bags to preserve the taste of those freshly baked donuts. In addition, both franchises boast an archetypal cast of characters with plausible psychologies. This makes characters as easy to identify as Disney silhouettes, but with added psychological depth. It's having the best of both worlds, and it translates to the journey as well. By following Campbell's blueprint, each story in the trilogy completes the circle, so to speak. But the loop is most definitively closed at the end of the trilogy. There's a few questions left dangling at the end of episodes 1 and 2. As a result, these endings largely achieve a sense of closure, characteristic of the crowd-pleasing Hollywood blockbuster, but also leave things slightly open-ended, as might a European art film. When one story ends, there's another just over the horizon. Or, to put it another way, it's like eating your donut and having it too. Another thing that ties Schafer to Lucas is his employment history. Schafer developed his writing chops while making adventure games for LucasArts, a video game development group founded by George Lucas in the 80s. It was while working on The Secret of Monkey Island that Lucas paid a personal visit, offering a few words of wisdom, which ostensibly influenced the writing for Psychonauts. Tim Schafer used the hero's journey as a guideline. This much is plain to see. However, he doesn't religiously adhere to it. Like Lucas, he breaks from the original pattern in places. Of course, the hero's journey is not a one-size-fits-all template to be applied rigidly to every story. It's a guide to building stable foundations. The horse should go before the cart, and the needs of the story should dictate its structure. Form follows function. What it can be used for is underlaying the hero's adventure with a time-resistant mythic structure, as well as tightening up plot lines and streamlining the narrative ride. As a result, you will often see elements of the hero's journey remixed and reinterpreted depending on the story at hand. For example, the 2019 Joker film uses the template to ease the audience into identifying with a villain, just as they might a hero. However, stages like Atonement with the Father are subverted to propel the protagonist down the path of revenge. And yet the villain still achieves a sense of unity at the end, merging his old clownish ways with newfound psychopathic glee, achieving a balancing act somewhere between Charlie Chaplin and Travis Bickle. The hero's journey is much more prevalent in Western culture. Part of the fun of knowing the pattern is seeing just how many popular works adhere to it.
Zeus! My name is Zeus. Zeus? Yeah, Zeus! As in father of Apollo, Mount Olympus, don't...
Or indeed how many bend it. While Hollywood makes ample use of the heroic form, European, Asian and Australian stories are more skeptical about the traditional notion of hero. Culture plays a part. Vogler points out that in Eastern Europe, there is deep cynicism about heroic efforts to change the world. Post-World War II, Germans became distrustful of the hero myth, as they had witnessed firsthand how it could be distorted for propaganda purposes, bringing a person like Hitler into power. As history is always written by the winners, and the winners didn't get there by singing Kumbaya, one might start to question the virtue of the heroes promoted by one's native culture. One might even question if the hero's journey is just another form of cultural imperialism, an instrument of American propaganda which allows for the rapid spread of simplistic ideas and assumptions at the expense of more regional and local forms of cultural representation. Psychonauts explores what it means to be a hero, even going so far as to explore the problematic nature of the term. In the first game, the founders of the Psychonauts appear as well-hewn heroes of a bygone age. Raz looks up to them, as any child might their favourite superhero idols. In the second game, Raz discovers that his heroes are not as perfect as they appear on the surface, in carvings and in comic books, and so the concept of hero and what it means to be one is called into question.
Oh no, don't explode! And don't explode me.
Like Greek gods, the Psychic Seven are flawed but powerful beings. As Raz digs deep into each mind, he unlocks the heroic potential within. The old and aged heroes are reborn, but in a new, more humanistic light. The shift once more is from the outer to the inner.
Let's clean up this mess. Come on, get a move on. Clean kitchen, clean mind.
When all's said and done, Psychonauts upholds heroic traditions. The narrative structure of Psychonauts 1 and 2 support this, both being based on Campbell's template. As previously stated, the original template is not strictly adhered to. There is some rejigging of parts, as some stages appear later or earlier than they normally would. However, the original stages are all present in some degree or other. One important change has a central ordeal, known as the Belly of the Well, occur at the midpoint of the story. This marks a crucial turning point. It's not just the story, but the landscape which situate this stage smack bang in the middle. The stage Rescue from Without occurs just prior to Apotheosis in both Psychonauts 1 and 2, while the stage Refusal of the Return appears very briefly in the first Psychonauts, but we'll leave it there for good measure. Once again, It's unlikely Schafer analysed the hero's journey with a fine-tooth comb, but the steps clearly informed the writing process. The hero's journey roughly reflects the three-act movie structure. In a typical screenplay, each act is tail-ended by a stunning surprise, that is, a shocking event which piques audience excitement levels, while transitioning the hero from one act to the next. The midpoint of the story usually marks the point of no return, or the darkest hour. That crucial turning point alluded to earlier, from which the life of the hero will never be the same again. All three events mark turning points in the story, reorienting the hero in both a literal and psychological sense. To trace the emotional progress of the hero, we can look to this odd-looking bunch. These neo-Jungian archetypes come from Carol S. Pearson's book, Awakening the Heroes Within, and reflect the psychological development of the hero. They can be thought of as the masks the hero wears to get from one stage to the next, or the archetypal energies transferred to the hero by a character he comes into contact with. By going through these archetypal changes, the hero ends up a more balanced, rounded individual by the journey's end. With that preamble out the way, let's dive straight into it. The hero is introduced in the ordinary world. Typically it's a drab, restrictive environment that contrasts to the colourful, special world which awaits. Think the sepia-tinged Kansas of The Wizard of Oz.
Just listen to what Miss Gulch did to Toto. Dorothy, please, we're trying to count. Oh, but Aunt Em, she hit over.
Don't bother us now, honey. You see, this old incubator's gone bad and we're like to lose a lot of our chicks.
In Psychonauts 1, the ordinary world could be regarded as the physical world, or the world outside the insular Psychonauts summer camp, represented in these monochromatic Viewmaster-like memory slides. In Psychonauts 2, Raz is introduced working a monotonous job in a monotonous office. On the surface, the office seems to represent the ordinary world, but not everything is as it seems. The office is fantastically large, and in reality exists within the special world of the mind. In such a way, the game toys with conventions, as well as perceptions. The ordinary world is where the hero experiences the call to adventure. This is the catalyst event that propels the hero towards the special world. It signifies that destiny has summoned the hero and transferred his spiritual center of gravity from within the pale of society to a zone unknown. It teaches us what makes the hero tick and sets him up for the plunge into mysterious depths. The event usually involves temptation of some kind, a map to bury treasure, or a curious scene which compels the hero closer. In Percival's quest for the Holy Grail, the young hero sees 5 shining knights riding through the forest. So magnificent is the sight that the hero can't resist pursuing them into the forest. In Psychonauts, Raz feels compelled to follow in the footsteps of his favourite comic book heroes. His desire to be a Psychonaut is instilled at an early age, but it's only when he receives a pamphlet from a mysterious shadowed figure that he is inspired to action. This mysterious figure represents the archetype of the Herald. It's one of the most useful ones there is, drawing the hero from his humble abode to a strange new one, brimming with danger, magic and mysticism.
Yeah. Sure. I'll go.
Whether it's a spy being sent on a top-secret mission, or a young wizard being sent to an enchanting school of magic, the Herald holds that shimmering golden ticket, guaranteed to take our hero beyond the beyond. However, the Herald is not always to be trusted. That shimmering golden ticket might just be a one-way ticket to hell. In Hitchcock's spy thriller Notorious, the Herald often appears in silhouette, like some dark and dreamy angel. His eyes might be hidden, but the audience knows exactly where he's looking. Ambiguous and providential, 2 eyes on his target and the third cast into the future, the character introduces himself as Devlin. Could be a devil, could be an angel, it's not yet known, and yet the hero can't resist the call. In the beginning, the hero is often blessed with ignorance. In archetypal talk, the hero is an innocent, soon to become an orphan in a strange land. When that hero is a child, they often err on the side of optimism. Without experience on their side, the hero looks onwards with eyes as wide as saucers.
Rabbit with a waistcoat.
That optimism will be tempered throughout the journey, but it's that same optimism which provides the initial push needed to accept that project, relationship, or top-secret spy mission. If they had the foresight to see the troubles lying ahead, the sacrifices involved, they might just refuse the call from the outset. It's a good thing then that the hero, unlike the Herald, has little idea of what's up ahead. When the hero begins the journey for the second time around, he's usually taken down several notches. You often see this in superhero sequels. At the end of the first film, the hero is practically a god. At the beginning of the next, their powers are drastically weakened, forcing them to work back up to their former godlike status. The black belt becomes the white belt, or the master becomes the student. At the same time, the hero begins one level higher, retaining the mental and archetypal know-how from his first journey. He may start off as vulnerable as a diapered baby, but he's been through the ringer before. Chances are he'll rise to even greater heights this time around. The call is worth thinking about not just in relation to the hero, but his playmates too. In isolation, the call may seem a preordained event, a golden ticket handed to our hero by the fates themselves. But as we learn the events leading up to the call, the specialness of the hero may be called into question, as it's revealed the fates didn't choose the hero, just a long and unlikely series of events.
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision.
In Psychonauts 1, the Herald appears as a twirly-moustached shadow, giving off the impression of a pantomime villain, like the child catcher. Naturally, the hero takes the candy, and the intentions of the shadowed figure remain dubious at best. Come the sequel, it's revealed that this figure is none other than that so-and-so you didn't actually see in the first game. Not only is he a she, but she is related to Raz, just not in the way you originally thought, or something. She's a surrogate grandmother, and surrogate family is a theme that constantly lurks in the background of Psychonauts, almost as much as that old fairy tale adage of appearances can be deceiving. Interestingly, the Herald has her own herald, in the form of a reflection. If we take Nonna to be the hero, then this could be seen as her call to adventure, but then one could look further back and identify Otto's invitation to use his machine as another call, and so on. From this perspective, the hero's call is really just one of a long chain of events, with roots in the distant past. The hero is clueless to begin with, and may be feeling somewhat out of place. They're isolated, alone, perhaps even persecuted. The hero needs out. This is where the archetype of the orphan comes into play. Old fairy tales such as Rapunzel and Rumpelstiltskin, or more recent ones like Harry Potter, commonly begin with the hero trapped. They could be physically trapped, as in a cupboard, or trapped in a more psychological, spiritual sense. Oftentimes it's their family they need a break from. At this stage, the hero has gained self-awareness and feels distinctly different from the rest of the tribe.
You have a problem with authority, Mr. Anderson. You believe that you are special, that somehow the rules do not apply to you. Obviously, you are mistaken.
Their childhood home offers no space for growth. What was once a nursery has become a prison. Take Pinocchio. He knows he's different from the rest of the toys. He can walk, he can talk, but he's not a real boy. He's still made of wood, and he's still missing that sweet, sweet soul. To gain it, he must prove himself to be brave, truthful, and unselfish. First, however, he must step out of his father's shop into a dark, dangerous unknown. In Psychonauts 1, Raz is forbidden from exploring his psychic side due to the beliefs of his wicked-looking father. In his eyes, his father is a tyrant, an oppressive ruler who stops him from fulfilling the ambitions of his higher psychic self. In Psychonauts 2, Raz is no longer the cool kid on the block, but an intern in a strange land.
I'm an intern. Agent Forsyth gave me this.
Hoping to find friendship among his peers, he instead finds himself locked half-naked inside a closet.
It's Raz. I was just wondering, if there's an intern uniform, how come you guys aren't wearing it?
Being trapped in a closet is pretty standard fare for the poor neglected orphan. The hero may experience this lonely kind of feeling during a refusal of the call. This is the point where the hero has not yet committed to his adventure, where he perhaps experiences a setback.
I can't do this. I can't get involved. I've got work to do. It's not that I like the Empire, I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now.
In Harry Potter, Uncle Vernon does his best to hide the boy's letters from Hogwarts. In Psychonauts 1, Raz is turned aside from the psychic training program and told to go back home.
But we can't let you participate in any paranormal training without your parents' consent. I'm sorry.
Prior to that, it's his father that does the refusing by ripping up his golden ticket. The refusal is a test of the hero's dedication to the call. It also makes the prospect of adventure seem that much more tantalizing. Like when you finally find that donut you've always dreamed of, but the shop's closed, and you can't afford it anyway. When backed against the wall, the orphan may feel an unconscious rebellion brewing within. Looking sad and pitiful can only achieve so much. Nobody's going to give him that donut for free. He's going to have to fight for it one way or another. And so he throws that wafer-thin orphan mask in the bin and picks up a spiked pair of gloves, a 3-inch thick suit of steel armor, a double-headed battle axe, and a corrugated cardboard mask of Gordon Ramsay's shouting face. This is where the hero frees himself from dependence once and for all and takes on the role of warrior. For Raz, this means channeling the energy of a fierce rebel cowboy while riding a prize pony to freedom. Interestingly, this scene contains a subversion of that classic trope of running away to join the circus. Here, Raz is determined to leave his family and find a new one, which he does through a daring and dashing means of escape. In mythic stories, this defiant act of rebellion signifies the independence of our hero. Most importantly, though, it shows that this lone warrior is destined for a lifetime of leadership.
Spartacus again, huh? Well, this time he died. Move up! Back to work, all of you!
Being young and rebellious, the hero seeks to break the script. The wool hasn't yet grown over his eyes. He sees things clearer than his forebears. He seeks the truth and nothing but. Typically, this search leads him to unearth his family roots. The poor orphan hero from humble beginnings actually comes from noble stock. Their instincts were right from the start. Even though Raz's backstory was kept a mystery in the first game, the possibility of him finding family in the Psychonauts was always on the cards. An early story concept for the first game had Raz discover a sibling locked up in Thorny Towers, except this was no ordinary sibling. He or she was a famous Psychonaut. Knowing such a development to be in store, this scene reveals a different story. The lone hero sets out to free his family, as much as flee them. Still, at this stage the whippersnapper's none the wiser. In Raz's eyes, the Psychonaut represents something closer to true family. He's grown up reading their stories in true psychic tales. He reveres them. This demonstrated not just by his enthusiasm on meeting his idols, but also his dress sense. Raz can't identify with his actual father, a tyrant with an anti-psychic chip on his shoulder. Instead, he looks elsewhere for father material. For Raz, taciturn scientist Sasha 9 serves as a dapper role model. More than that though, he's a substitute father figure. In the first game, Raz is dressed to look like him, suit, turtleneck, shoes and all. In the second game, Raz literally donned Sasha's old duds. The symbolism is made more explicit. Raz is assuming Sasha's mantle, not just emulating his hero, but putting himself in his actual shoes. But the suit is slightly too large. Our fun-sized hero still has some growing up to do. Throughout his journey, Raz receives help from various mentors. Supernatural aid naturally comes knocking at the hero's door.
Mia?
Yes, darling?
Near the end of his journey, he's usually supported by all the powers of his supernatural patron, but before then the hero must build his skills, or his psychic repertoire. Video games are naturally well suited to this stage. The early levels of an action game usually involve tutorials. By having those tutorials delivered by mentors, the designer can kill two birds, promoting the mythic structure, while teaching the players the skills they need to keep their avatar alive.
Sasha? Are regrets dangerous?
Oh yes, extremely. Take care of that one, will you, while I find an exit.
Supernatural aid can also take a more physical form. Amulets, talismanic charms, and powerful weapons all count, but while their form may differ, their function is essentially the same. These things exist to lend the hero and the player a helping hand. The caregiver could be interpreted as the antithesis to the warrior. In the traditional tribal family, the mothers were caregivers and the fathers warriors. Warriors make and protect their boundaries, while caregivers foster the development of the tribe. If there's too much of a warrior culture, then an attitude of selfishness and cynicism could easily develop. But countered by the more maternal caregiver, the atmosphere softens, and home starts to feel more like a safe place than a place from which to escape. Mentors guide the hero through the special world, while male mentors like Sasha and the coach reflect the more explorer and warrior side of the hero. Miller brings out his caring, nurturing side. She's a mother goddess type, more interested in spiritual comfort than aggressive competition. When this archetype dominates, the person may sacrifice their own desires for the health and benefit of others. By bringing out the kindlier aspects, the hero directs his warrior instincts towards protecting and caring for others, and not just indulging in his own hubris. Supernatural aid is often represented by one mentor or more directly intervening in the life of the hero. In Harry Potter, the half-giant Hagrid smashes down a door and makes balloon art of a rifle to free the hero from captivity. In Psychonauts 1, Raz is allowed to continue his training due to the interventions of Sasha and the coach.
Some experiments. I'm sure he could withstand more than the others.
That kid's 1 in a million, Nine. I've got big plans for that mind.
In the sequel, Raz is helped by a whole party of mentors as he goes about his mission. These mentors guide Raz across a number of obstacles, preparing him for the long and winding road ahead.
Got the situation under our control.
Supernatural assistance can only go so far. Eventually, the hero must go it alone. Faced with a portal to the unknown, the hero has nobody to turn to but himself. Bravery, courage, and faith are all exemplified in this next pivotal moment. The hero is at the edge of the precipice, with no real knowledge of what awaits next. The golden ticket in hand, he must now accept its questionable terms. Caution must be thrown to the wind, and belief instilled firmly in the call. One brave leap will land the hero in the special world, a dream landscape of curiously fluid, ambiguous forms, where he must survive a succession of trials. The ride won't be easy. It may even be laced by what the hero fears most, but there can be no transformation without pain, and there can be no adventure without venture. All it takes to begin with is a simple leap of faith.
Right here.
Crossing the threshold takes a certain kind of courage from the hero. The hero must not only break away from family, but also the world as he once knew it. This desire to go beyond the edge of reality and travel to lands unknown is best represented by the archetype of the explorer. The explorer typically seeks some great treasure located in the heart of a maze, temple, or cave. It might be the promise of riches that lures the explorer into the woods, but clinging on to such base desires never bodes well for this type. The true explorer is the Grail Seeker, the noble knight who seeks meaning within as well as without, and the true Grail must be sought in the heart of the Seeker. In Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, the hero explorer sets out on a quest for the Holy Grail, but underpinning the adventure is a more personal quest and a more personal Grail. Really, the hero sets out to find his long-lost father, who went missing in search of the Grail, and in doing so spark their relationship to life.
It is you, Junior. Don't call me that, please.
Early in its development, Psychonauts was conceived as a quest to free an estranged sibling from imprisonment. This is the archetypal quest of the explorer. The treasure might be the catalyst that spurs the hero to adventure, but the true hero prioritizes his personal relationships over the allure of sparkling gold. To drive home the point, the hero's motivations are typically contrasted with those of a greedy foil, who's willing to do anything to get a taste of treasure. In such a way, these archetypal explorer stories serve as simple parables. Don't get too greedy, they say. You see this formula used time and time again in Hollywood adventure films. Indie set the trend, others follow. The threshold is the border between two worlds. It's that liminal in-between space between the conscious and the subconscious, the physical and the metaphysical, reality and dreams. The two worlds are starkly different, but the deeper the hero descends, the more the boundaries blur. While the rabbit hole might send Alice to what seems on the surface a strange, faraway land, it's really a mirror world, one which helps her understand the rules of the adult world above. It's sheer childish curiosity that sends the explorer tumbling, but maturity and insight which she brings back to the surface.
There's no place like home.
In The Matrix, it's a mirror that reveals the digital truth underlying all physical reality. Mirrors and rabbit holes, but also doors, gates, deserts, walls, rivers, cliffs and oceans. Cinema features countless thresholds. Perhaps the most famous example is to be found in The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy opens a door to a lush Technicolor dreamland. Crossing the threshold often brings the hero face to face with stunning surprise number one. There's no telling what awaits on the other side. It could be pleasant, could be mind-bendingly bad, but whatever it is, it's bound to leave a mark. In Psychonauts 1, Raz projects himself into the mind of the coach via an astral door. Just as Dorothy's crossing is accompanied by a recognizable jingle, Raz's crossing is signaled by a leitmotif. Here the sound and visuals work hand in hand, paying joint tribute to a classic work of 60s science fiction.
You're late, soldier. Now get in here and give me 20.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension.
What awaits on the other side is a room with a projection, but not everything is as it seems. The walls collapse and a military playground awaits. A similar trick is used in the opening of Psychonauts 2. A seemingly real setting is revealed to be artificial. Really, the game is making playful use of a classic spy trope, familiar to viewers of Mission Impossible, The Prisoner, or even The Matrix.
This isn't real. What is real? How do you define real?
The effect is one of discombobulation, similar to that felt during the first loop of a roller coaster. Perceptions are quickly turned topsy-turvy, the ground is swept from under, and reality seems a much shakier premise than it did 2 minutes past.
The world that you know. The world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a neural interactive simulation that we call the Matrix.
The first door Raz is shown entering in Psychonauts 2 belongs to Hollis. There are parallels between the characters of Hollis and the coach. Both are tough sergeant types, responsible for inducting the hero in the ways of the special world. But Hollis's door isn't the first threshold we see Raz crossing. There's that scene of Raz infiltrating the lab within Loboto's mind, all by his lonesome. Just before it, the mentors are nowhere to be seen, their voices nowhere to be heard. Raz's dialogue makes clear he is all alone, fulfilling one criterion of the crossing.
Lily? Oh no, I think I'm the last one still in here.
After scaling the ladder, Raz lays eyes on another spy trope, that of the sinister mystery boss.
And the old egg in the box, and the box in the ocean.
Simple.
And if you tell anyone about me, anyone at all.
I do not like failure.
Another criterion of the crossing is ticked off when Raz encounters a shadow presence that guards the passage. This introduces another key motif of the hero's journey, and video games at large, that of the Threshold Guardian. Threshold Guardians exist to test the hero. Cast into Greek hell, the hero stumbles across Cerberus, the three-headed monster dog who guards the gates to the underworld. The hero's task is to figure a way past his jaws. He might use sheer brawn to pummel his way past, or make smart use of a sausage up his sleeve. The Guardian might be nothing more than an illusion, a shadow the hero can simply pass through. A shift of perspective may reveal the truth behind the beast, add a dash of trust, and that fearsome-looking enemy might just turn into a valuable ally. The Guardian often presents the hero with his first real challenge, although it might be some time later until their true nature is discovered. By showing them off near the beginning of the journey, the writers signpost their importance to the plot. In Psychonauts 1, the shadow monster who blocks Raz's path to the laboratory later helps Raz reach it. In the sequel, Maligula bookends Raz's journey in and out of the special world. In both cases, these characters are crucial to the plot, so much so that the plot literally revolves around them. Just as there are secret guardians, there are secret doors. Just as the identity of the Guardian is bound to be discovered, the forbidden threshold is bound to be crossed. Doors are there to be opened, and the explorer is too curious a sort to leave them undisturbed. It's a trope found in almost all stories of human curiosity, whether they be mystery, detective, or gothic. It's what Vogler calls the law of the secret door. Heroes inevitably violate limits set by mentors or threshold guardians.
I can explain.
In the archetypal gothic tale of Bluebeard, the wife is warned by her totally trustworthy husband to avoid the locked room at all costs. Any door can be opened in the house except that one. Not suspect at all. Belle is told the same thing in Beauty and the Beast, and virtually every gothic leading lady who marries into wealth. You see this trope too in detective stories, including more surreal takes on the genre, such as David Lynch's Twin Peaks. Tim Schafer has regularly cited Lynch as a main source of inspiration, and we can see some of that influence in the visuals of Psychonauts. In the deepest recesses of the coach's mind is a mystery room, a long white corridor decorated with a repeating pattern of bunnies and carrots, crimson curtains splashed on the back wall. This stark high-contrast style is reminiscent of the Red Room in Twin Peaks, and it has a similarly ominous feel. Just like in the tale of Bluebeard, there's murder lurking somewhere in the back, even if you can't see it at first. The secret room in Psychonauts 2 could belong in a castle as much as a casino. Hidden behind a painting is a passage that leads to a hideout. It's the hideout of the Mole, and it contains one of those crazy walls so prevalent in the detective genre, as well as a few questionable books, including the parody Necronomicon. Maligula makes an appearance too, and an open sarcophagus, adding to the gothic atmosphere. Similar to the coach's corridor, this place marks the center for a plot to conspiracy.
I think I found the headquarters of the Maligula fan club.
In the next stage of the journey, the hero must pass a succession of trials. Doing so allows the hero to ascend, fulfilling the desires of the explorer archetype. Seeking higher ground, climbing a ladder located in the center of the maze, the heart of the temple. These are all ambitions of the explorer. Ideally, the explorer should search for higher truth. They should be willing to share whatever gifts they discover with the rest of humanity. However, the seeker may attempt too much at once, and his heart may be set squarely on himself. When the explorer serves no god but himself, the shadow side comes a-knockin'. With the shadow in possession, the explorer ironically directs themselves along an ever-narrowing path. Everything becomes about the self. They might be motivated by a desire to get high with drugs, or more broadly by a desire to feel tickled at all times. The rule-flaunting adrenaline junkie is thirsty for excitement, but when every decision is driven by the inner thrill-seeker, things can quickly turn sour. The shadow seeker is a known overreacher. It might be a Lucifer-like ambition to usurp heavenly power, or an arrogant climb for godlike heights. Icarus was wearing his father's wax wings when he flew too near the sun. Too much ego and too little experience sent him crashing back down to earth. A young, powerful novice paired with a self-seeking mentor is a classic recipe for disaster. What connects all these shadow seekers is a tragic pride, resulting from a disconnect with the spirit, and a presumptuous disregard for earthly rules. The hero needs the right sort of training to develop his inner seeker. Ideally, he should have a wise, protective mentor by his side to test, train and guide him along the road of trials. Video games often use this opportunity to teach new skills and abilities, opening up new avenues of play, and so mentors exist to guide the player as much as the hero.
Once you get up in the air, try using your thoughts as a balloon to float.
During this stage, the hero might just meet that special someone. Giving the hero someone to care about helps direct their energies away from the ego.
Oh my god! Let's make out!
With the seeker in charge, the hero does what they can to differentiate themselves from others. But when the lover leads, he learns who or what he stands for. In Psychonauts 1, the relationship between the hero and love interest develops during the road of trials. In such a way, the hero finds that sweet spot between lover and seeker. After honing his psychic skills, his girlfriend is kidnapped, along with his two most valuable mentors.
Raz, you came!
It might be the seeker that makes him strong, but it's the lover which guides him the rest of the way. Love makes you do crazy things, and the next step of the hero's journey may be his craziest yet. This is the crux, the midpoint crisis, the central ordeal, the inmost cave, the darkest hour, the point of no return, the plateau of change. It's the point from which the hero's life will never be the same again, where perspectives are flipped, enemies become friends, friends become enemies, and the hero is born anew. It's the stage Campbell calls the belly of the whale. In the Bible, the prophet Jonah is swallowed by a great big fish. After 3 days and 3 nights inside its belly, Jonah repents, promising to pay his vows to God. The Lord nods his head, has a little talk with the big fish. The big fish nods its head, then does the technicolor yawn, spitting Jonah out onto dry land. Jonah wipes the fishy vomit from his sorry face. He's back, thank the Lord, except he's not. The old Jonah is no more, died in the belly of the fish. His journey makes a U-turn, starts moving in reverse. Descent becomes ascent, fleeing turns to freeing, others replace the self. With newfound spirit, purpose and perspective, the hero reorients himself towards limitless sky. Entering the belly is entering a magical passage, a mystical womb from which there is no way back. Not until she dances toe-to-toe with death can the hero pop out the other side. It might be a physical nail into the cross, but more often than not, the death is a spiritual or psychological one. In action films, this is the scene where the hero is surrounded by the enemy, with no seeming means of escape. In mystery stories, the belly could be the site of some great revelation. The hero, who has seemed in charge up to this stage, suddenly finds himself on the back foot. He's been hit by the arrow of Cupid. He's starting to realize that he's not in control, or at least not as he once thought.
The chemical precursors that signal the onset of an emotion, designed specifically to overwhelm logic and reason.
The nadir of the journey is reflected by a sudden shift in landscape. A hole sends the hero plummeting, the lights flicker out, and the ground greets him hard in the face. It's a dank, earthy smelling sort of ground, and besides that creature hissing in the dark, there's no living thing in the place. Sewers, caves, catacombs, tunnels. The hero's deep underground now, in the land of the subterranean dead. Joseph Campbell compared this stage of the journey to the adventure of the Symplegades, a pair of small rocky islands fabled to dash together and destroy ships as they passed. The passage through the belly is a form of self-annihilation, but instead of passing outward, beyond the confines of the visible world, the hero goes inward, to be born again. The direction downward and inward is exemplified in the mythic journey to the underworld. These are the stories of Aeneas, Persephone, or Orpheus. In Psychonauts 1, Raz descends to the bottom of a lake. where he stumbles across a long-forgotten boomtown, a sort of Wild West Atlantis, full of skeleton fish, rickety buildings, and ancient relics. After journeying through the land of the dead, he battles a lake monster. With the monster stunned, the hero leaps inside her mind and awakes in a mental metropolis. Viewed at a remove, the nested structure reveals itself, a modern city inside the mind of a monster inside a long-lost town at the bottom of the sea. Essentially, the game is ticking off a long list of mythic motifs. By nesting them in a single location, the level draws the player inwards and downwards, and the dive into the belly feels that much deeper. In Psychonauts 2, the journey through the underworld is clear from the outset. The hero is dropped into a graveyard, guarded by a giant comb, or a threshold guardian. After escaping by the skin of his teeth, he drops down into an open grave. From here, his perspective is flipped around. He floats past some skeletal guardians, then drops down into an open casket, marking another magical threshold, and adding further depth to his descent. He's at the lowest level of his journey now, and also the deadliest. Crossing through the coffin, he encounters a few skeletons from his past, and experiences an epiphany. This is the central turning point around which the whole narrative hinges. There's no turning back now. The belly is the site of a psychic metamorphosis, both in terms of past and present. What goes in must come out, and what more fitting exit is there for our travelling hero than a caravan door? A caravan is where the hero was born.
It's where I was born.
I see. Compelling.
Knowing this, the door takes on a special significance. The coffin is the death room, that cryptic borderland between sleep and waking life. Passing through the door brings the hero back to the land of the living, but he's not the same coming out as going in. The hero emerges reborn. Following his rebirth, the hero has a meeting with the goddess. In both Psychonauts games, this is where the monster's true identity is revealed. In the first game, Raz frees a monster from a mind control device, after which he becomes his ally. From this point on, Raz acts like something of a savior figure. Almost every new person he comes across, he leaves in a much better state of mind. When Raz lands on the other side of the lake, he emerges baptized, along with the monster, now christened Linda. The Threshold Guardian is free from shadow. What was once a monster is now a goddess. The hero begins seeing things with new eyes. Monsters do exist, but they're not to be found in lakes, castles, and forests. The only place they truly exist is within the mind. Not all goddesses are as helpful as Linda. Some are destined to create, and others to destroy. Maligula is a classic destroyer. Wherever she goes, tragedy and loss follow. We know she's evil because of how purple and pointy she is. Her appearance seems to take cues from the Disney Handbook of Animation. Round circles equals cute and innocent, spiky triangles equals dark and sinister. She wears a long fur coat, like a primitive hunter, with a too tall hood that further exaggerates her height. Her coat complements her character. Maligula, we are told, symbolizes the amygdala, the primitive part of the mind responsible for the body's fight and flight response. Her destruction takes the form of floods, bringing to mind ancient myths like the Epic of Gilgamesh, whose deities sought to drown whole civilizations. Great floods also occur in biblical stories like Noah's Ark, and various tales of Egyptian, Scandinavian, and Indian mythology. And so Maligula comes across as an ancient creature, one which has existed from the beginning of human time. In Campbell's eyes, the deluge motif has psychological significance. Flooding represents the annihilation of the ecosystem. The flooding of barriers is symbolic of the id overflowing into the ego, the higher self drowning within the dark sea of unconsciousness. When the Psychonauts confront Maligula, there's a little of Lucretia still in there. In other words, the ego has not yet been completely drowned by the id. Maligula represents the shadow side of Lucretia, a part of her personality, not the whole. Lucretia creates, Maligula destroys. This dualistic split is common in Russian folktales, particularly those involving the character of Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga is an old lady, known for being maternal or monstrous, depending on the time of day. One moment you might find her cuddling a baby, The next, she's biting the heads of children. In addition, Maligula's destruction centers around a fictional Eastern European town, lending credence to our Russian fairy tale roots. Further across the map is Kali, a Hindu goddess with which Schafer is most definitely familiar. Kali is a goddess with a dual nature, who shot to Western fame with the release of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. She's the goddess responsible for this heart-grabbing scene, and the nightmares of hundreds of thousands of children. On the subject, Campbell writes she combined wonderfully the terror of absolute destruction with an impersonal yet motherly reassurance. Again, we have a dualistic split between a death-dealing destroyer and a life-nurturing creator, something which ties together all three of these half-femme fatales. There are further links between Psychonauts and Indiana Jones. Both franchises are associated with the 80s, both feature an ancient mystery cult, and both involve Nazis. Obviously, Psychonauts doesn't have actual Nazis in it, but one can't escape the Nazi ties. There's the German-sounding scientists Sasha and Otto, who specialize in unsound scientific experimentation. And then there's Maligula herself, whose genocidal actions reflect those of Hitler. It wasn't just anti-Semitic sentiment which fueled Hitler, but anti-Romany too. During the Second World War, it's estimated that hundreds of thousands of Roma men, women and children were killed by the Nazis. The Roma genocide is an overlooked part of the Holocaust story, and it's a part of history that seems to have rippled through to the writing of Psychonauts too. Like the death card in a pack of tarot, the destroyer means more than plain old death.
The death card?
No, that's good. It means transition, change.
Oh, that's cute.
The happy squirrel.
The destroyer is also the transformer. In the change of seasons, spring follows winter, and in the circle of archetypes, rebirth follows death. The reverse of the destroyer is the creator. The creator allows us to find our deeper, more authentic self. Think back to that coffin which exposes the secrets of Raz's family's past.
Who's that?
In order to accept the new story, the hero has to painfully detach from the old one.
I don't believe it. It's not possible.
Sometimes you have to cut off a part of yourself in order to grow. This sort of universal advice has been peddled by everyone from mountain mystics to Charles Bronson. Archetypes are, after all, there to help everyone, and with this universality in mind, the hero's journey represents the circle of life. Each archetypal step in the journey represents a stage of human development. Typically, the biggest change occurs in the middle, in that magical phase known as the midlife crisis. And on that cliffhanger ends part 1. In part 2, the circle goes full circle. The fates of Augustus and Otto will be explored, in connection to Frankenstein, Sleeping Beauty and Superman. Greek gods also come into play, and some old animals make a curious comeback.
Rasputin?
I'm on him.
We can't let you participate in any paranormal training without your parents' consent.
All agents, the tooth has gone bad.
I'm sorry, little boy, but there just aren't any school tours today.
Just hurry up, okay? It's cold in here and I'm practically naked. Uh-oh.
That kid's 1 in a million, 9. But I'm not gonna let you turn him into one of your guinea pigs.
Did you forget everything I taught you about levitation, Rasputin?
Now get in here and give me 20.
I put the egg in the box, and the box in the basket.
Eliminate these monsters in the proper sequence, and we can move on to the next lesson.
I don't know, but I think it's time I find out where this is coming from.
Hey, what's back here?
You'll probably get kicked out of the Psychonauts for trying, but what the heck?
Connect those thoughts, young man!
Train?